Hi everyone, Dr. O here from MBA 715. Good to be with you again. Just a few pointers, a few reflections, looking back and looking forward a little bit. First, looking back, it's been a terrific first half of the semester, and it seems that many of you have been finding connections that are meaningful in your own learning for where you work now and perhaps where your career might go in the future. That's just terrific. And part of that has been the depth and quality of a number of the discussion questions where people have really invested, it appears to me, some time and thought into posting those initial, making those initial posts and in showing kind of an appreciative response to fellow classmates' discussions. This doesn't mean I just agree 100%. In fact, it's a little bit more interesting when there's, have you ever thought of, or what would you consider, and prompt each other to think more deeply and richly about things that we've posted. Now, in the module that just completed, there were a couple of interesting pieces, especially one about ways to increase collaboration in a workplace. And you were asked to pick a behavior from each of 3 lists that are suggested in that Sloan Management Review article. And some terrific work there, again, with some appraisal of how they might work or how they do work and how good you are at doing them as you see yourself now, and ways of looking forward to improving skills. The other piece that was perhaps a bit surprising to some was the article about power, engagement. Where has all the power gone? And it takes us to a different perspective of understanding, questioning, considering this phenomenon of workplace engagement. Now, if you took MBA 621 with me in recent years, you realize I built a lot of the course around a 4-frame way of understanding what's going on in organizations. And it gives us 4 different perspectives to look at the same exact situations and see different questions and different considerations. And that helps explain a bit of what's going on as we move from the engagement, everything is great and terrific and positive, to, is it always good? Is it always without other motives? Is there unevenly distributed power in society that reflects on into organizations? So these are very, very important questions, to not just be cheerleaders for the latest thing that excites us about management theory, but to ask questions. So when I teach a reframing perspective, I say you can look at an organization structurally, and the metaphor for it is a factory. So we need policies, procedures, rules, physical structures, reporting structures, and that all of this is very helpful to make an organization work in a systematic and somewhat predictable way. There's an HR perspective, which is, the metaphor there is thinking about an organization as a family, not a literal family, but one where caring and needs being met and fit with the job that's there to be done for an individual. It's really the human relations perspective, and that asks a lot of questions that would be the ones commonly asked as we look at engagement. Now, there is the symbolic frame, which is really where organizational culture and norms and meaning exist. And we ask questions about purpose and see some important factors that impact performance of an organization from a cultural viewpoint. And then we can look at it from the political frame, which is a bit of where we dipped into the discussion with the article in Module 4. And this says that power is an important element to understand and how it works in organizations, that conflict is a natural outcome of limited resources and competing competing entities looking for resources, and thinking about forming coalitions and so forth. And so when we ask the questions about power, we're saying not power as in a level. Sometimes in organizations, people say leadership as a group of people, which isn't wrong, but it probably means the senior executives or the senior managers of a particular part of your organization. And some people, one or two at least, talked about power kind of in that same way, the people who are further up the chain in the hierarchy of the organization. And that is one way of thinking about power. The higher you are up in terms of the authority structure of an organization, you have more positional power, the ability to direct and kind of supervise and manage people, because formally you have the power to do so. But just keep in mind there's all kinds of power in organizations that come from different sources, information power, expertise power, kind of referent power, kind of charismatic attraction of certain people who seem to have an influence on others, even if it has nothing to do with a formal position in an organization. So that article is included to purposely shake up your thinking a little bit and say, okay, is it always all the good things that we talk about in engagement or not? I remember William Kahn corresponding with a group of students in a class here at St. Ambrose, well, several years ago now, and they were interested in seeing if he would come to or virtually come to a class to discuss engagement. And he said he could respond to questions. And somewhere in responding to those questions, or maybe another occasion when I saw him speak or heard him speak, he expressed surprise at the huge thing that engagement had become in the Academy of Management Scholars, and now in terms of everyday companies and consulting firms, because he never really intended it to be a method, a mechanism, something you'd measure with a survey that could help determine exactly where people are and how to motivate and direct and guide their engagement. He saw it, as I recall, more as this is about setting up context where an individual can choose to bring herself or himself into the workplace more fully, and is more about thriving as an individual than measuring and directing engagement as an outside party. Now, a lot of good things have happened as we look at engagement from that measurement perspective, with a survey measurement, and I think he would be okay with some of that as long as it's not intended to manipulate people or to kind of grab the last bit of energy we can out of an employee by this new magic sauce called engagement. So there's a lot of good in terms of engagement mentally, emotionally, physically in your work. And we have to still be ready to ask some questions. Is it all good? The same would go for many, many other programs and approaches to management in organizations. So I'm going to come back again with just a few-minute look into the where we're going in the next week or so in the next video, but I'm going to say goodbye for now. Take care.